Hi everyone, my name is Lakshmi Tulasi from second year CCB bearing the roll number 573. So today I'm here to talk about processor clock and clock rate in computer organization. Okay, so first let's get into it and let's see what it is. So what processor clock is? So processor circuits are controlled by a timing signal called clock. So it is nothing but the processor clock. Okay, so what is processor? First of all, processor is nothing but it's a CPU. Okay, CPU is also known as processor, as we all know, and the clock defines the regular time intervals called clock cycles. So let P be the clock period and clock rate R equal to 1 by P measured in heads cycles per second. So to execute a machine instruction, the processor divides the action to be performed into a sequence of basic steps that each step can be completed in one clock cycle. So yeah, to execute a machine instruction, generally the machine instructions are executed by the processor, as we all know, and the processor generally divides them into the action to be performed into some basic steps, and each step can be completed in one clock cycle, okay, which is done by the processor clock. And let P of one clock cycle is an important parameter that affects the processor performance. Okay, so if P is less, then we can say that it is having less time and the clock cycle is very less. We can say there is a lot of efficiency. Generally there is a lot of, like, if the time period is less, of course we can say that it is more efficient, it is working very efficiently. If the time period is more, then the efficiency is less, so the P, which is nothing but the clock period, and the clock cycle depends on the P, which is clock period, and yeah, it's the important parameter that affects the processor performance. Okay, the processor performance depends on P, and which is clock period, as I told you. So the performance can be improved by reducing the clock period, that is increasing R, as we mentioned earlier. By reducing the clock period P and by increasing the R, which is the clock rate, we can increase the performance. Yeah, the performance can be improved. If it is taking less time, then the performance is high. If it's taking more time, then the performance is probably less, right? So the performance processor used in today's personal computer and workstations has a clock rates that range from a few 100 million to over a billion cycles per second. Yeah, nowadays we use the processors which work like this, that has the clock rates range from few 100 million to billion cycles per second. Okay, so now let's move on, and now I want to discuss about basic performance equation. So this is used to generally measure the performance. Okay, so which is T equal to N into S by R. N means actual number of instruction executes. S means average number of basic steps needed to execute one instruction. So generally N means an instruction, like the actual number of instructions, whereas S means the steps in the instruction. For each instruction, how many steps it takes to execute. And R is clock rate in cycles per second. Okay, so less value of T signifies high performance. That means the time period, if the time is less, then there is a lot of performance. If the time is more, then the performance is probably very less. Okay, so R is clock rate in cycles per second. So now let's move on. This is everything about the basic performance equation, and let's see clock rate. So, and how we can improve it. Okay, so the clock rate R can be increased in two possible ways: by improving the IC, which is integrated circuit technology, with faster logic circuits to reduce the time needed to compute a basic step for execution, and by reducing the amount of processing done in one basic step. So these are the two ways in which we increase the clock rate, which is improving the IC technology by implementing, like by including the faster logic circuits to reduce the time needed to compute a basic step for execution, and it is also by reducing the amount of processing done for each step, for each one basic step. Amount of processing done, by reducing that processing, by reducing the amount of processing, we can easily increase the clock rate. Okay, so these are the basic steps. So now I want to discuss more further about the IC, what is integrated circuit technology. Okay. So IC is nothing but it is a semiconductor wafer on which thousands or millions of tiny resistors, capacitors, diodes and transistors are fabricated. So here we can clearly see the integrated circuit image. So let me show you how integrated circuit looks like. This is how integrated circuit looks like. So, and this is everything about it. Has it is a semiconductor wafer. It has like thousands or millions of little tiny resistors and capacitors, diodes and transistors, okay, within it. So that is integrated circuit, and that's everything about it I wanna talk about in the seminar. And thank you so much, and thank you.